While just about everybody else on the upper end of college football is scrambling around for playoff position in the college football rankings, Georgia's basically saying, we're on top of the mountain, come get us. And their next opponent is Missouri in Athens. We got Tyler Piles on the line here. He does our Georgia postgame show with the voice of college football. Hey, Tyler, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Cannot wait for Saturday.
All right. Well, Missouri probably can wait for Saturday. They've got a quarterback issue themselves with Connor Basilick. We just spoke with the Rivals rep from Mizzou, and they don't know if they're going to be able to start their starting quarterback, Connor Basilick. And their two backup quarterbacks have a combined 9 pass attempts in their career. So for those, either one of them, Cook or Macon, to line up against Georgia is going to be pretty daunting if that wasn't already the case anyway. All right. Well, looking at Georgia, though, not much to talk about concerning the ranking. It is what it is. They're dominant. Nobody has an issue with that. Everybody's got an issue with 2 through 10, but Georgia no such issue there. So let's get to the quarterback position, because that's where the debate lies. You think Stetson Bennett's going to start on Saturday? Well, who do you think's the better quarterback, and who should be the starting quarterback, and what's JT Daniels' status?
Well, JT Daniels is clearly the better QB. The only aspect Stetson brings just a little bit better than JT Daniels is the ability to run the football. JT Daniels has the better pocket presence. JT Daniels has the better passing efficiency, especially downfield. JT Daniels has the better build. He's just a way better quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think we'll see JT Daniels start in this game, mainly because of how bad Missouri is defensively, but also because I think Kirby Smart's just going to stick with Stetson Bennett, just like what he's done in the past.
So it's always been my thought that JT Daniels must be the better player because of the recruiting ranking. I hate to leave it to that. Obviously, if players outperform their recruiting ranking, then so be it. J.J. Watt was a 2-star, for example. We know that he's a future Hall of Famer. And there are 5-star busts. But to compare these two players, JT Daniels has performed, for the most part, better on the field as well. They've played different types of competition, even during their stay at Georgia. Although, once you bring the mobility factor into the argument, and also I'm hearing, and I'm not going to pretend to be able to say that I've evaluated their throwing skills watching Georgia play, because I haven't, been laser focused on, okay, who's making the NFL throws and who can't, or can they both, or can neither. But I'm hearing from various people that Stetson Bennett might have a stronger arm than JT Daniels.
Yeah, and that's been brought up to my attention too. Listen, we've seen it in games against UAB. Stetson Bennett stepped up and made a couple really, really, really good passes. A lot of people doubted his arm strength. And then we see against Florida, he throws 2 terrible interceptions to a backup safety, and they were obviously misread, but it looked like he didn't get enough air under the ball and, again, made a terrible read. So it's been more inconsistencies with Stetson Bennett's arm, in my opinion, than anything else.
Yeah, the one interception he threw against Florida to the end zone was just inexplicable in regards to what is he looking at here. He's got other options, and he's throwing to a guy where the safety's obviously committed to that side of the field, and he's basically double covered at that point and didn't even put it in a position where he could try to fight for the football. All right, we got Tyler Piles on the line. He handles our Georgia post-game efforts here at the Voice of College Football, so join him after the Mizzou game, which is a 39-point spread, which outside of Vandy, you don't see in the SEC. So this is crazy, but it's justified. There's no question. Shoot, they beat Arkansas by 37, who's a much better team than Mizzou. So, man, this team's just rolling. And that makes it kind of boring until we figure out who can beat them, and that's probably going to be in the SEC championship game, because people were trying to stretch Florida into a possible foe, and that's understandable. They've got talent, but at the same time, that I think for those of us who wanted to see a competitive game, we were trying to will Florida to halftime at 3-0, and then it just all imploded on them. And you can't do that against a team like Georgia. And suddenly it was 17-0 at half. So after Mizzou, obviously Georgia Tech's the finale. I'm losing track of who else they have yet to play. Tennessee.
Yeah.
Which
And that's
could be fairly
a road
interesting
game
for a
too.
while. It's got the potential to be somewhat interesting.
Yeah, it really all depends on how Tennessee's defense plays in that game. I think their offense is very, very good. It's shown up against some of their biggest opponents, but defensively for Tennessee, that's been the huge issue. And Tennessee's pass defense comes in ranked 10th in the SEC, maybe 9th at best. So they've been having a little bit issues with the pass defense. We saw it against Alabama. They competed for the first half, maybe even into the third quarter, then gave up, I think, 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter. So Tennessee's just going to have to, if they want to compete in that game, they're going to have to play a really, really good stretch through the entire game.
Yeah, it was a 24-17 game going into the fourth quarter against Alabama, so they were right there, and then got nail to the hammer to the nail type deal in the fourth quarter. Maybe the most interesting aspect of Georgia football this week, and it's kind of crazy that you win so much and win so dominantly that there's really no question about or concerns about what's going on, but was the exchange in kind of a roundabout way that Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart had about recruiting. And of course, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, they've owned recruiting. Clemson, LSU, those kind of second tier. That's been the landscape here for the last 5 years or so. So Kirby Smart has obviously killed it on the recruiting path, and that's why he owns the division and potentially the nation this year. Dan Mullen has all the players right in his backyard, but he has lackluster recruiting classes, and lackluster for Florida. I shouldn't overstate it. They've had recruiting classes in the 8 to 12 range, but it appears as though they're even slipping from that status. And you just have to be relentless on the recruiting trail. Dan Mullen's giving the impression that this is just something we do in the off season. I know that can't be the case, but Kirby Smart's underlining that this is why you win. You get the best talent.
Yeah, and I think he went on and said something about, I can't even quote this, but if you watch the interview, he said something about college football is about 50% recruiting, 25% coaching, and another 25% scouting. I believe that is what he said, and that is what Kirby Smart and that is what the game plan has been for even Nick Saban. Nick Saban is the best in the game. This is what he's taught all of his assistant coaches and defensive coordinators and whatnot. And that is what they strive. Recruiting is huge, especially in the SEC. You go back to Dan Mullen, and he's in one of the best recruiting states in the entire country, Florida. He's only been able to grab 3 to 4 top 10 players in his state in the past 2 years. And coming into this year, he has 0 top 10 recruits in the state of Florida. So that is a huge disappointment if you're a Florida Gator fan.
Yeah. And certainly Dan Mullen, up until the end of last season, was looking at just where he had done a pretty good job with the program. He took them over with 4 wins. He raised it to 10 to 11, winning New Year's 6 games, beat Georgia finally, wins the SEC East, gets to the championship game, plays Alabama close, but it seems like everything since then, including the LSU slip up, the Cotton Bowl disaster, everything in the offseason regarding recruiting and everything leading up to this season is just fallen apart. And I don't know that he's necessarily long for Gainesville. We shall see. All right, Tyler, we appreciate you stopping by. Anything else we need to talk about concerning Georgia? Is there any drama on this team whatsoever regarding any kind of concerns anywhere?
Other than quarterback position, no. Just looking into this Missouri game, Missouri has one of the worst defenses in not just the SEC, but in the country. Missouri is ranked 130th out of 130 teams in rush defense, giving up almost 300 yards rushing per game. That is at a historical low for Missouri. Barry Odom, before Drinkwitz, Barry Odom was able to establish a solid front seven at Missouri. Maybe not having consistently good defenses, but rush defense and especially defensive line was actually solid for a good part under Barry Odom. And since Drinkwitz has came to Missouri, that's been a big issue. Now, last year they had a really good linebacker, Nick Bolton. They have nothing close to a Nick Bolton this year. Their entire defense has had some injuries, but still being 130th in the country in rush defense, even giving up almost 300 yards to an FCS team that's only won 2 games is embarrassing. So I expect Georgia to pound the ball, pound the rock, and completely own the offensive line in this game, and especially defensive line as well, as they are used to. But I expect UGA to surpass 250, maybe 300 to 350 yards rushing in this game.
Yeah, Bolton's already starting in the NFL as a rookie, and they had a couple safeties drafted off that team. And the defensive line recruiting, not necessarily the recruiting, more so the development and the players on the field over the last 10 years at Mizzou has been really good, but they are depleted this year. And the Tennessee number, I think, in the rushing game was 456. Goodness gracious. That's you don't even need to throw the ball. If you can run the ball at will, and they're facing the best offensive line and group of backs that they're going to see all season by far. All right, Tyler, we appreciate you stopping by, and enjoy the game on Saturday. It probably should be about a 1/4, possibly 2 affair, and then you can kind of coast and check out the rest of college football.
Thank you, man. Go Dogs.